rankings for those excellent awesemo.com members, the people who pay to keep the lights on, the people who pay my salary, so the vast majority of you can sneak in on their plays. So obviously quite a bit of news today, an exciting slate. 10 games on the day, 8 obviously on the late slate, or 7 depending on whether or not you're... FanDuel's been impressive. They're literally 0 for this year so far on deciding when to start a slate. This is really only the third time. The previous Sunday, and the Sunday before that, all 3 of those days, there was a decision to make, and I'm pretty sure they screwed it up each time. The first time, they chose to go early with only 1 game, and it wasn't a great game. That was wrong. The next time was like a 6-game slate if you went early with 2 decent games, and instead they incorrectly decided to go late. And then tonight they skip one of the best games in the evening and don't start at the standard time because everyone wants to stay in their house more on Saturday night. I don't even know, but that's what they have done. Let me get that going. Hey, that's working there. Throw a retweet out there with my hot Timberwolves fingernail. We're going to talk to someone about that. The rankings are up now. Yes, absolutely. Live before lock show. You should have seen the retweet. So let me get all the various chat streams going. I will load up the YouTube chat, and if the people in the Awesemo chat fail to do a good job of constantly peppering me with lovely questions, then I will complain horribly and have to go to the YouTube chat to try to find some questions from you fine people. So here we go. I'm going to discuss each of the games very, very briefly. It's just me by myself, so I should be able to manage the pace hopefully fairly well. Lots of people sort of spamming me with questions, which I apologize I cannot answer all of right now. So I'm going to do game by game, talk about a lot of guys. We're going to do them chronologically, and hopefully that'll get us through with enough time. So first game, we have Phoenix at New Orleans. This is a pretty appealing game. Let's first move our microphone closer before we go any further, because we've done a shit job of doing that at the start of shows. And you would think I would learn at some point, but nay, I say unto thee. I will not remember to move the mic forward until 1 to 7 minutes into every single show. I will please hold on questions unless they are pertinent to the game and I just missed something. So if I get done talking about Phoenix and I don't say something you want to hear about Phoenix, fire off a question. Otherwise, you're just beeping me and slowing down the show. So Phoenix at New Orleans. Big news here, of course, being that New Orleans is going to be without Elf and without Mirotic. This game only available on DraftKings for the previously stated reasons of management incompetence on FanDuel. I have a lot of love for this game, as should you, especially with those 2 guys out. You are looking at some really, really clustered production from the hands of, everyone on New Orleans in what's a pretty excellent matchup against Phoenix. But specifically Julius Randle, Anthony Davis, and of course Drew Holiday, who not only gets lots of usage, also gets to handle the ball every second of the way, and all sorts of those good things. Neither of these teams are on a back-to-back. Let me just pull up my back-to-back notes. I'll just read them now and we'll get back to them later. But those on the back end of a back-to-back, that to say people who played yesterday, the Nets, the Heat, the 76ers, the Wizards, and the Kangs. Those on a front end playing again tomorrow, the Rockets, the Lakers, the Knicks, and the Bucks, although that will not affect us this evening. So both of these teams, thankfully, on an island game. So hopefully you're looking at lots of minutes, lots of production here. We will talk about the Pellies first. I don't mind Isaiah Canaan, someone who I'm generally a little bit off on. Again, we're only dealing with DK prices, so that makes this a little simpler. But at $4,400, he makes an interesting play. I think I like him a little more in cash and Fultz a little more in tournaments at that price. Someone's asking whether I like TJ Warren or Markieff Morris more in tournaments today. I like TJ Warren more, though if I'm building one lineup, I think I probably play Trevor Ariza for reduced ownership. And again, it's just playing the right guys on the right days. A few days ago, TJ Warren made a lot of people a lot of money in the Awesemo Premium chat. And we were talking up to lock, myself and Josh Engelman, and the news came out that he was going to start, and we just windmill slammed him because he was 4,100 and 4,500. And we knew the ownership would be low. We liked him in cash. We liked him everywhere. He was like 20% owned. He went off for 45. Now, that last part is just dumb luck. That's not going to happen very often, though it will happen every 5th game or so with him. He is a guy who carries a very large upside. But I would probably rather play Trevor Ariza if I'm playing one tournament lineup today for a couple of reasons. One, the minutes are more secure, which, again, tournaments aren't about security, but it certainly doesn't hurt. Second, I expect the ownership to be about a third of what TJ Warren's is for $100 more. And, Trevor Ariza has certainly a reasonable upside. I don't know if he's hit 40 yet this year, but he's got 32 plus in 3 out of his last 5 and 35 plus in one of them. And this matchup is now at this point to die for. Drew Holiday, the best of their guard wing defenders they're going to see out there. He's going to spend most of his time dealing with Devin Booker, so he gets to deal with lots of Wes Johnson and various other guys. So don't hate the matchup too much for him. TJ Warren will see apocryphally more Anthony Davis. So for a couple of reasons and for the ownership, we don't have time for me to spend this much on every player. But if I was building one lineup today on DraftKings, which is the only place you can play him, I would play I would play Trevor Ariza over TJ Warren. There is nothing wrong with playing TJ Warren. It's just purely an ownership stand. You can play TJ Warren in any format you want. I will not argue with you. I want all of this game I can get my hands on with the clustered production and the high pace and the relatively minimal prices. So Kanan, I actually think is just fine today. Booker is obviously just fine. This is one of those great to play, great to fade days. He will be popular. He is in a spot with a tremendous upside, but he is going to deal with a large concentration from an elite defender. And if you looked, they played, I think last year they played 2 times where Booker and Holiday basically played a full game, and you had one really shit Booker game and one pretty good Booker game where he had about 40, I think, and he had like 20 in the other one. Neither of those numbers surprised me necessarily tonight, and he does carry 90 as an upside. And since you will probably have some exposure to the Pelicans, he is the most obvious name to run it back with, but not certainly a must-play by any means. The guard positions are chock full of goodness from value all the way up to the top, whether or not you're talking about Paul or Harden or the value guys who are in all these games. So feel free to play Devin Booker. Feel free to not play Devin Booker. I wouldn't feel too bad either way. DeAndre Ayton, more of a cash play for me. Still really think he's going to get me his 35. I really doubt he kind of goes off for ceiling game here against Anthony Davis at all, but the pace is great. And you like that he's in there in blowouts, so probably doesn't make it into any of my one lineups. Probably wouldn't make it into my cash lineup just because I think there is a real downside with 19-year-old kid attempting to guard Jesus. That can go badly for you. Beyond that, I think you can put McCall Bridges in a tournament lineup. Has some merit. Looking at the Pellies, again, you have no Mirotic. You have Elfrid Payton. All right, you don't have Elfrid Payton either. So Drew Holiday, $8,500. That's a big number, but the ceiling is absolutely preposterously massive. Certainly can put up, 50 would not surprise me. I'm fairly certain when these two teams played in April, he actually put up 55 or some number. It wouldn't shock me at all. So feel free to have Elfrid in anything you want. I think he's excellent in cash. I think he's excellent in tournaments. Etuan Moore at 4,600. That's more just tournaments, but a very strong play against Phoenix where he's now going to see towards the top of his minutes range. I like Julius Randle at 6,200. Again, this is a game I've been tinkering around and futzing with putting guys in lineups for a lot of the day, and I frequently end up with lineups with Davis and Randle starting at the 3 and the 4. You hope Randle... I'll go ahead. I'll go on a limb here and say I think Randle gets his season high in minutes today. I'm just going to go out there and say I think Randle gets the 29th minute that has thus far eluded him. The matchup is outstanding. I still like the Pelicans by a lot in this game. I'm curious what the betting line is. And I love Anthony Davis. This was one of the two teams he put up 90 plus against last year. In the game where he put up the 95 or whatever it was, I think Alex Len started and Marquise Chris was the backup. So those are some pretty shit defensive centers. But Ayton is better than both of them, but not by any significant measure where it's not absolutely something you can do again. And then you take Mirotic out of there and there's extra shots. So that's really, really safe. I don't know if I like him more than Kevin Durant. I would be building a lot of lineups until I didn't have them both. They just both have very reasonable projections in the high 50s and real upside for, lobster on top of that. Beyond the guys behind that, I think you end up getting like 26 minutes out of Wes Johnson here. I think he's my current favorite 3,000 flat play, and there are a lot of them today, and I will try to get done with this fast enough that I can go on and just talk about at 3,000 this guy, at 3,100 this guy, at 3,200 this guy, because there are actually compelling value plays at all those points. Notes coming in the Trumio chat. Blowout concern for Pelican Productions. Someone just said Elf is out. I know Elf is out. If I said Elf is playable in cash, I was talking about Drew. Elf is out, Miro is out. I said that several times. If I contradicted myself in my haste, I do apologize. But yes, Elf is certainly out. Yeah, I don't know who I was talking about when I said they were playable in cash, but it certainly was not proper Alfred Payton. Concern with blowout? Not so much. The Phoenix team has played over its head a little bit in a couple games. Like, you certainly hope that the game stays close if you're exposing there, but you should have some concern about blowout, but not much more than you would have with the Golden State game or several of the other games you really want to target. So I don't think it's it's a spot where it's really bothering me. But if you're wondering how your stacking this game line goes sideways, yes, the Pelicans at home, even without two of their best four players, putting an absolute beating on the traveling Suns at a game that takes place at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Suns body clock time. Yeah, that's how it'll go sideways if it goes sideways. So appropriate to have some concern. Cleveland and Chicago. George Hill is out. Kevin Love is out. Sam Decker is out. Chetty Osman is out. The nice thing is that'll stop people from playing Sam Decker all the time. So you should be happy about that. So let's talk about the guys on this team. So you would think we'd have a lot of interest here. The Bulls are really bad at defense. The Cavs are -4 guys. Everyone on the team is cheap, and I'm still not doing flips here. The most relevant thing I want to say that hasn't seemingly been fully digested by most people in the last... Drogic is still questionable. That does not help me. Since we've last been through this, the date on your live stream says 11/3. I got. Well, you guys are killing me here. Yes, somebody else who is not me set up the scope. Here, I will put a comment on my. Here we go. Wrong date at Josh Engelman. There you go. Calling out Josh publicly on the Twitter for you. Yeah, he I did it alone last Saturday. I like to do it alone at least once a weekend. And I assume he just recycled the show information and forgot to change 11/3 to 11/10. So don't worry, we have not gone back in time. It is the 10th, and we shall continue forward thusly from this point. I'm still not playing Colin Sexton. I've said no to playing Colin Sexton outright almost every day this year, and a couple times hedged and was like, look, you can do it. I guess this is a look you can do it spot. Really didn't want him last time and said, look, he's going to play 40 minutes, but he's still bad. I still don't think I want him at these prices. He played 42 minutes or something last game. Still wasn't good. He's not good at playing basketball. The matchup is great. He might play 40 minutes again. It's worth pointing out that George Hill went out, and in about 24 hours they went, okay, we can't have dipshit McGillicuddy playing point guard for 39 minutes a game. He's not good. He's got some time to, learn and get better here. But let's go get Andrew Harrison. And Andrew Harrison, they pretty quickly said, is going to make his debut. And I think you come down to 32 minutes of, I literally think he gets out there and plays point for 15, 20 minutes with no knowledge of the system, and he'll be better than Colin Sexton. Don't play Andrew Harrison, but I'm not playing Colin Sexton. You can certainly make an argument that he sees 36, 40 minutes against the Bulls, and anyone can get there, but it's just one of those things. If I thought he was going to be 5% owned, I'd like some Colin Sexton. At what's going to be 15, 20% owned, I don't have our ownership projections up, and I don't have time to look at them. I will wait for another day, if ever. Rodney Hood fine in tournaments. You were concerned about the minutes last time. I liked him quite a bit, even at 5K last time. If he gets 30 minutes, which he generally should, I'd be pretty excited about Rodney Hood there, but only tournaments because of the minutes issues that are inherent therein. I don't think there's any reason to play J.R. Smith at 4,700, 4,200. At 3,700, it made me feel dirty. Larry Nance, I have a lot of interest in. Boy, again, another one of those days in which people writing about this, some of it was staggeringly bad. Not only, so one of the things I read was he's yet to play any minutes, besides Tristan Thompson. Not only did he play some minutes at the 4 last game, he only played at the 4 last game. So he literally only played power forward last game. Now, still didn't get as many minutes as we would like, but I'm not shocked if he gets a start today, and especially on DraftKings where you will have an hour to swap off of him. I have some interest in leaving yourself room for Tristan Thompson. Or I'm sorry, Larry Nance we're talking about here. We'll get back to Tristan Thompson. Thompson played center and Zizic played backup center, who is another guy who I have some interest in at the Stone minimum on FanDuel at power forward and 3,100 on DK. Played 17 minutes and had 10 and 9 and a little bit more, and the coach was like, yes, he deserves more playing time. So it's only tournaments because, yeah, who knows, maybe he only plays 5 minutes today, but, maybe he plays 20, 22 minutes. That's pretty good. He's in that conversation with the Amir Johnsons of the world we're going to get to. Rest of this team, Tristan Thompson, fine, kind of cashy. I'm not doing it in tournaments, but if he ended up as your cash game center, I think that's fine. He probably still continues to play 30-plus minutes. No reason to completely purge him from your tournament field, and the matchup is fine, but I'm not excited. I can see lots of ways it goes sideways. I like Jordan Clarkson in tournaments. I do like him a little more than Rodney Hood for $100 cheaper on both sites. Got the closing time. He's obviously a guy they want out there. I'm not playing Korver. I don't want to play David Nwaba. He got 13 minutes in that last game or maybe it was 14. He got low teens in minutes in the last game with Chetty Osman going out after playing only 6 minutes. There are better guys at minimum price and for only $100 or $200 more who I project for much more. Nwaba, and until I see something else, I think it gets 18 minutes and 11 fantasy points until I see something otherwise. A player I really like, and revenge game if you're into that chip, but nope. So on to the Bulls. Again, usual suspects out there. No Portis, no Dunn, no Markkanen. They have announced that Ryan... It's funny that I was getting worked up about being able to correctly pronounce Arcidiacono, and in doing so, fumbled over correctly pronouncing announced. So, just let you all get a kick out of that. They have announced that Ryan Arcidiacono will get the start today over Cameron Payne. A little more appealing on FanDuel, where he is the actual floor, as opposed to 300 over the floor on DraftKings, where, again, on DraftKings, there are lots of pretty good value plays at 3,200, 3,100. So FanDuel makes some sense. He's going to get 21 to 33 minutes. Really don't know where he's going to land in there, but I would guess around the middle. He asked me to project. I'll say 26. Has a reasonable upside, and when you take George Hill off the point on this team, this is a really, really woeful Cleveland defense. They're the worst or second worst defense in the NBA, depending on how you judge it. So Arcidiacono, which I say as often as I can now that I've learned how to pronounce it. Stronger play on FanDuel than DraftKings. Wendell Carter, obviously, again, stronger play on DraftKings than FanDuel. You can put him in anything there. He's still just underpriced. He should cost $7,200. He costs $6,300. I don't think you need to windmill slam it. He is not a must play, but he's close. He's really good. There are a lot of strong centers in that range. He has basically the same price as Julius Randle, which makes it really tricky. But Carter and Cash, Randall in tournaments, I think is a pretty easy how I would distribute those guys off the top of my head. Justin Holiday, just fine to play in tournaments, not doing it in cash, but just playing 37, 38 damn minutes a game. And again, a matchup we really like. So if I'm building 150 lineups, I got, a dozen Justin Holiday in there, and Zach LaVine, all the upside in the world in this matchup. Price, obviously, coming up, he's now priced basically appropriately. You can certainly see this game turning into a slog. Again, the last game the Cavs played, they played the Thunder and collectively scored 179 points or 185 points or some not very impressive number because, again, just ugly teams with, some dicey point guard play, we'll say, generally, although Schroeder was good in that game. But that's enough of this game. We'll come back to it in questions if necessary. Moving on to the next game. A little bit to talk about in this one, the 76ers and the Grizzlies. Let me make sure they have not given me a lineup yet. They have not given me a lineup yet. I believe the 76ers will start Simmons, Fultz, Shamet, Embiid. I'm back and forth over this a few times. And Redick. I think it's who they'll start with, Redick at the nominal 3 there. One of the nice things that I think gets ignored here is that one of the nice things about having Magic Johnson or Ben Simmons or giant people as a point guard is in the event of someone getting injured, a la Magic Johnson in the finals against the Celtics, you can have your point guard go and defend, in this case, power forward, or in that case, center if necessary. So you don't need to. A lot of the commentary I've gotten today is like, Amir Johnson has to play 27 minutes. There's no Muscala. Sure, on most teams that's the case, but Ben Simmons is a solid 6'10" and an excellent defender, and you can absolutely roll him out there to defend Jaren Jackson Jr. without any issue whatsoever. So they might stack the shit out of Amir Johnson's minutes. I'm inclined to... I think 21 minutes or so is where I'm going to land on Amir Johnson at this point. He played 22 minutes in the postseason at least a couple times last year. During the regular season in games where Embiid was out, there was at least one game he played 31 minutes. He's not 37 years old. I believe he's 31. So, yes, he can play that many minutes. This is very similar to Boban, who is 30, and people are like, you just can't play 25. Yeah, you can play 25 minutes. When each of your steps is, 37 feet long, it makes it much easier to run up and down the court. It's 3 steps from foul line to foul line. So I generally like Amir at 3,200, but there still is certainly some risk implied in this conversation. They like the laundry. No Ticky, no laundry, but Landry Shamet, I think, does pick up extra time. It's just going to be like guys they trust. Okay? And by the way, the downside with Amir Johnson is perilously low. The downside with Amir Johnson is because they're shorthanded and because it's Marc Gasol, Joel Embiid plays 41 minutes and Amir Johnson plays 7. That's not impossible. There is a real chance he just plays backup center. Now, I think that's unlikely. I think he's got, time in industry. They do want the size in this matchup. So I think he gets more time than that. But it can go really sideways in a hurry, and that is something you should keep in the back of your head. I like J.J. Redick a lot. Has only played one game against this Grizzlies team since he came over last year and played limited time because it was a blowout, but had like 22 fantasy points in 18 minutes, and I went back and watched his limited time on the court. Again, this is last year, so you're dealing with a different coach, but a fairly similar defensive system there. And I just like his ability to use his off-the-ball movement to get a lot of shots here. And I think they're going to need them. Is there a chance that, I think there's a better chance Simmons goes nuts offensive than Embiid. Embiid generally has respected Marc Gasol, and Marc Gasol has generally done a fairly good job against him. So, now that doesn't mean anything. If Embiid wants to go out there and crush, he's still going to crush. If he decides, I'm going to take 25 shots and just post and pull him out of the three-point line and just do his thing, he certainly can. But he's also a reasonably smart player and usually only does that when that's the best thing for the team or close to the best thing for the team. That's not really the best thing for the team. The best thing for this team is to, use their mobility and their youth, to use Simmons to use his size to get into advantageous switches, and I think is a better play. So certainly, especially at his reduced price because of the bad matchup, Joel Embiid's absolutely fine to play. Yes, he could absolutely throw up 75, 80 fantasy points on back-to-back days. Certainly could happen here. I'm slightly more inclined towards Ben Simmons having the ceiling game. And past that, I like Redick to quite possibly end up popping off and getting 20 shots here. I can see a number of ways that could happen. So I like playing Redick. I like playing Redick more on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I have no problem if you move down and play Fultz instead. On FanDuel, you pay $200 to go from Fultz to Redick. I'll play Redick. On DraftKings, it's $800. At that point, I will save the money and play Fultz. Just a pretty solid overall producer. $4,400. You hope the minutes now come up to 30, 31. All the extra bodies people are talking about here with TJ McConnell. Now, TJ McConnell may end up randomly starting, and if you get the start out of TJ McConnell, then yeah, feel free to windmill slam that. Yeah, so the Pelicans are starting who I thought they were. They moved Etuan up to the 2 and are starting Wes Johnson at 3. So I think Wes Johnson currently leading my guys to play at minimum price rankings, for those of you who are concerned of such things. So, yeah, beyond that, you want to play Jonah Bolden. I think they want to play him 20, 22 minutes. He is a guy who struggles with foul trouble. We can get him out there actually against Jaren Jackson Jr., and they can just start slapping each other in the face and get 6 fouls in 30 seconds each. Jaren Jackson Jr., the first player in the history of my rankings, which, again, this ranking format was only Summer League and so far this year, who actually has a D in cash and an A in tournaments. First one ever for Jaren Jackson Jr. He has all the ceiling in the universe, and there are any number of ways that he ends up trying to guard Joel Embiid, who puts more fouls on people than has to be, I haven't looked at this stat in a while, but has to be close to any player in the NBA, and likes doing it. So getting some real estate up in Triple J's head wouldn't surprise me at all. So actually, in the history of my rankings, which you're talking about at this point, 5,000 players, the only player to have a D in cash and an A in tournaments is Jaren Jackson Jr. That's pretty self-explanatory there. I don't like Gasol against Embiid. You can always play Marc Gasol in a tournament because he produces so equally across the board, and he's not going to be owned tonight, so feel free, but not a spot I'm trying to look at there. On DraftKings, I would rather play Kyle Anderson over Garrett Temple if you are looking to stack this game. Neither of them my favorite plays at their prices in the low 4s. On FanDuel, Garrett Temple's $1,000 less than Slow-Mo
I would go that way. Again, no Shelvin Mack, no Dylan Brooks, no Wayne Selden, no Marshawn Brooks, none of those guys. Let's move on to the next game in the interest of time so we can get to those hot, burning, delicious, Cajun-seasoned questions that have been brewing for a while. The Washington Wizards just, wow. Timberwolves are like, look how dysfunctional we are. Hold my Diet Mountain Dew. Say, the Washington Wizards, not looking good. So last game, it was not so much, as I alluded to yesterday, so to redact and somewhat update my comments from yesterday where I said he sort of got run off the floor. I went back and looked at not only did you have the extra, Jeff Green time, you also had the extra time for Austin Rivers, and basically they ran Wall and Beal their full minutes plus some. They each played 42 minutes, but at the end of the game, all of Otto and Markieff and Dwight were off. So it was not, I guess my point is, I was very concerned after the Dwight game yesterday that they were going to have a repeated thing where they just went small, and with that matchup against Orlando being a matchup where they run a lot of bigs on Orlando, I was concerned that, wow, if they go small there, this is a concern. It was more that the Wizards were completely terrible with their starters, and the second unit brought it back, and so they just kept Wall and Beal in there because they're not grotesquely stupid, although I guess that's up for argument, but because they understand it's Wall and Beal, and cycled out the other three guys. So that being said, I still don't want any of the bench players. This is a team that obviously still wants to have a shot at the playoffs this year, but they're 2-9, 2-10, they have 2 wins, I'm pretty sure. So they're overloading their starters with minutes. I still think Dwight is a very interesting tournament play, though the matchup is bad, but his price is just too cheap. Even at his current age, condition, minutes, etc., Dwight should be, $7,700 on FanDuel and $7,000 on DK. He's basically $1,000 less than those prices. Dwight's still fine in tournaments. So is Markieff. So is Otto Porter, whose ownership will come back to appropriate levels tonight because he wasn't amazing last game and because people are silly. I like Wall. I like Beal. I obviously like them more on DraftKings where their price is. Larry Nance starting for Chetty? Yeah, I thought that could happen. Okay, get yourself a big-ass pile of Larry Nance now. They saw the error of their ways with the J.R. Smith issue. Larry Nance is 46 on DK at power forward center and 49 at FanDuel at power forward. Yep. The lineups I was toying with all day already had him in there because I was not going to be surprised if this particular happenstance came to pass, and it has. So yeah, definitely. Getting some Larry Nance in your lives is a strong idea. It's a superlative matchup. At this point, I'd project him for 34 to 36 fantasy points off the top of my head in his 29 to 31 minutes. So, yep, go ahead and make him your guy. We're, 26 minutes before lock? His ownership won't get over 8-game slate. I'll say 21-22%. We'll have a cute game of daddy like when we get up to lock there. But nope, I definitely think that makes a fair amount of sense there. So yeah, I'm looking for. Is it okay to play Larry Nance and Tristan Thompson on the same GPP team? Yes, but it obviously gets better if you run it back with Zach LaVine, who's the first guy you want to play. If not that, Jabari Parker, who I don't think I specifically alluded to when discussing that game, but is absolutely fine to play in anything you want. Yeah. A couple more questions. Feel free to fire any Larry Nance specific questions. Carter or Adams for DK Cash? Yeah, Carter, Adams, Randall are really the interesting ones. I will still stick with Carter in the matchup. Oh, it's a little worse with Nance out there. But I'll still say Carter and Cash. Slightly prefer Randall as the GPP pivot over Adams. Though they're all, I would project, fairly similar to each other. And Adams has had some very decent games against, at least 2 decent games I can think of off the top of my head against DeAndre Jordan. But yeah, first cash lineup would be Carter. First GPP lineup would be Randall. Second GPP lineup would be Adams for me discussing those guys. Every game is Rondo revenge. Close to it. He certainly has picked up a fair number. He's on team 5, right? Dallas, Sacramento, LA, New Orleans, Boston? I think 5. So not that many. He's not full Vince Carter, who's on, I think it's 8, I want to say. But yeah, Larry Nance is starting, so he'll get a bit chalky, but not chalky enough that I don't think you still just, like, if you can, I would get, like, if you have 150 lineups, I don't think you go 150 Larry Nance, but I think I go 100 if I can get it done. Like, I would go very heavy on him at this point. It's just a very good fantasy point per player minute, and 4,600 is just a number he can really bludgeon the shit out of. So talked about Washington for a bit. I think that was comprehensive. Again, stick with the starters. I don't want to go with the bench there if you must. And somehow you're playing this game and I think it blows out, then play multiple guys or just one guy. You would play Oubre there. Dragic is still questionable. He's in play as a tournament play. You'll get him at 1% owned. 1% Dragic is pretty interesting. Minutes range for Nance. I mean, you know everything I do. This Drew bullshit and the front office bullshit and the emergence of Zizic. Like, the minutes range is literally, presuming there's no injury, no fouls, 18 to 38. Less than 18 would surprise me. More than 38 would surprise me. No number in the middle there would really shock me. Like, you could just run the team at this point and look great, and it's the Bulls, so he quite possibly will, and there's Jabari Parker out there, and goodies. Like, it's Clay going overlooked, projected at 5% ownership. I would want a lot at 5%. I don't think that's what's going to happen. And unfortunately, we can't daddy like that one. Although maybe I'll come back on a few minutes before 8, do a little FanDuel caveat, and talk about it more. Because again, FanDuel has that later lock. Plus, there's late shows and stuff, so there might be more to discuss. Maybe I'll Periscope. Maybe I'll do something again in an hour. But if he's 5% owned, then yeah, I would want quite a bit. Like, I thought my gut would be that he was going to be much more highly owned. I've heard him talked about several times, so I would think he's closer to the 15% range. At that point, I'm fine to play him. I'm fine to fade him. I didn't have a strong take on him. If he's at 5%, then yes, I want a metric butt ton of him. So, and I generally trust our projections to be very accurate because, well, they have been. The Heat, absolutely nothing wrong with playing Hassan Whiteside in tournaments, although the matchup isn't a particularly good one. Howard is a good defender that limits his upside a little bit, but not hard to put some fouls on him. These two teams did play earlier in the year, but that was Sans Howard, so results there not terribly relevant. Difficult to go too heavy on a lot of these guys with Dragic still, to my knowledge, being questionable. If Dragic is in, I'd like 1% Goran Dragic in this situation. If Dragic is out, it's the usual suspects. We can go back to Tyler Johnson at 4,300 on DK because we'd be late swapping, and you can go back to Josh Richardson at 7,400. He's in a really good spot. He actually had 40-something in his earlier game against Washington, and that was with Dragic in that game. Yeah. And you can still Olynyk in tournaments, but no strong takes there. No one I'm over the moon on. Let us move on to, let's talk about the Spurs and the Rockets. So it's really interesting for me figuring out how to deal with mega underpriced studs on the Rockets on DraftKings. We don't have news about their guys. Like, if Eric Gordon and Michael Carter-Williams and Carmelo Anthony are out, that's a lot of shots to go around, kids, and a lot of minutes. And then you have very, very low prices on Paul and Harden against what's, frankly, at this point, a pretty shitty Spurs backcourt defense. So where you're dealing with Derek White and Bryn Forbes and DeMar DeRozan. And, like, really hard to think one of them doesn't bludgeon the piss out of that fucking price. It's possible. But if all those guys are out, so I guess this is a long way around of saying, try to set your team up so that, you know, if it turns out that many of these guys are out, I think going into some Harden over some Kevin Durant makes a lot of sense. If everyone's going to be in of those guys, obviously Melo will be out. But if Gordon is in, is really the relevant name there, I'm a little less excited. But it's still incredibly cheap prices. They make very, very strong plays. But even at those reduced prices, I project other guys to just put up such larger numbers. But $9,600 James Harden is cash worthy. And clearly there's a tournament upside. It's not our favorite matchup, but we are overthinking it a little bit if you're not like, wow, $9,600 James Harden. The issue is I don't know how to not play on DraftKings Kevin Durant and Anthony Davis. But certainly the first lineup I was building that didn't have one of those two guys would then have James Harden in. Quinn Cook in 20 lineups is 85% Quinn Cook in 20 lineups. Too much Quinn Cook. So that would be 17 lineups. Did that math right in my head there. No, it is not de facto too much. It is taking a stand, and he is not guaranteed to produce. So it comes with the inherent risk of playing 85% anyone. Like, I would play 20 Kevin Durant in my 20 lineups. There's a risk to doing that. Is that too much? It depends on your own personal tolerance. But I do like Quinn Cook more than others. There are people who have been trying to tamp out that fire a fair bit today all over the internet. I actually, in the matchup, and I actually like Quinn Cook a fair amount. I think I'm very, like, I'm not over the moon. It's still Quinn Cook, but I really do believe in the spot, and I do think the minutes are going to be significant with Livingston still not there. So I like Quinn Cook at his low fours and prices. I think he's perfectly cash worthy. It's close for me, but I like him a hair more than Cannonball. Although a lot of my lineups, because I'm stacking, Durant and Anthony Davis started like Cook, Fultz, Kanan. I was like, all right, I got those three guys at 42, 4,400, and then Durant, Brow, and then build out the rest of them. But I would not fret if I was playing 85% Kanan. That's just me. Other people are apparently very, very loath to do so. If Eric Gordon is playing, especially on FanDuel at 5,000, he'd be a tremendous tournament play. That's obviously going to be tough because we probably won't have that news in time. But with Melo out, he could have just a massive amount of bench usage and is a guy who carries a big, big ceiling with him. And if his foot is okay, should smash that spot. But again, the foot issues were some of the reasons for the issues before. You can certainly play Harden or Paul at their FanDuel prices. You could even play Paul still in cash. 8,200 is still a little bit too cheap for him, but they're, both more cashy plays at that point. And I'm probably looking to other guys. Looking at the Spurs, I don't think I want to spend almost $4,000 on Davis Bertans the game after he went off. Again, see basic GPP play game theory. I don't think I want to guess that Patty Mills goes off a third consecutive game. There's a number of reasons he couldn't. Derek White could get more minutes as he's now one more game back from injury. Just the roles could change in the bench. Bellinelli could have a better game. DeRozan could play more minutes, and it could be like any number of things could happen. Plus, the matchup isn't that stellar. So, DeRozan in tournaments is going to be very low owned. Like, I'm guessing we would have him projected for 4 or 5 minutes. Are you making a huge mistake by preferring Paul George, Kevin Durant, and GPPs? No, not at all. I love Paul George in this spot. I just love him slightly less than Kevin Durant. I love Paul George. I was one of his biggest fans before the last game where I said, I just think he's gotten unlucky these 3 games without Westbrook. He's just shot poorly, and I think he has a massive ceiling, and I pushed, and I think we overexposed the field by 2 or 3 times. So, I think your average Paul George, Sean's Russell Westbrook game is more like the last one you got, not the ones previous to that this year. So, no, I have no issue if you want to play. Like, I consider them both exceptional. There's no amount of Paul George you could have that would bother me. Nope. There's no amount of Paul George you could have that could bother me in cash or tournaments. I'm not worried about the matchup, micro or macro. I'm not worried about the pace. I'm not worried about the usage. Not worried about the price. So, no. You want to save yourself $1,500 on DK because it makes the rest of your lineup better? Okay, I'm with you. News check. No news. Dubs and Nets. Nets, feel free to play none. You probably should play none. There's a lot of amazing plays tonight, and they're the Nets, and it could go all kinds of bad. They're on a back-to-back. Kenny Atkinson is generally a fuckstick, and on back-to-backs is a super-duper twice-inserted fuckstick. He does all the worst things. With that, plus the potential blowout, if you told me no one on the Nets played more than 25 minutes tonight, I would not be surprised at all. Like, that's like a 30% likelihood that nobody on the team sees more than 30 minutes. If you made me play a net in cash, it would be Karis LeVert. If you made me play a net in tournaments, it would be D'Angelo Russell. On DK, I might play Jared Allen over D'Angelo Russell. You can make an argument for Rondae Hollis-Jefferson that hopefully his minutes pops the hell back up. That's it. I'm not going to waste any more time because I do want to get to some questions, and we are running low. The Warriors, Kevin Durant... these 2 teams played already a couple of weeks ago, and Kevin Durant had 57 with Steph and Draymond there. Like, unless you think they're going to get handled, or they've got, like, the game is even reasonably close at this point with all the injuries, I project Kevin Durant for about 58, 59 fantasy points, and there is a ceiling for 75, and he seems relatively cheap, and I can't get away from it. I like him more than Braun pretty significantly. And at a certain point where there's if there was worse value, I would really sit there and look at Paul George and Kevin Durant for quite a while, because I like Paul George for 50. So that's really close for me, but I'm going to take the potential of, 85 out of Kevin Durant, which is really there. Klay Thompson is fine. That is an ownership question. He will take a few extra shots, but again, there's something to deal with. You're missing Steph and Draymond, who are two of your best 3 ball handlers, I should point out. And Klay, while he has gotten better at this as his career has progressed, does not create his own shot very well. There are, in games, some of his best games, Klay Thompson dribbles the ball fewer times than shots he takes. Like, there are games where he takes 14 shots and dribbles the ball 9 times. That happens. So, not having pinpoint precision Steph Curry guy out there with you does threaten him a little bit. Now, the volume comes up, but the efficiency does come down. And again, it's him and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant can create his own shot in every way a human being can. Klay Thompson is more limited in that regard. Now, Klay Thompson is much less expensive, and again, he's even dollar for dollar cheaper on FanDuel than DraftKings. Feel free to play Klay Thompson. But I thought he was going to be kind of popular, and based just on that ownership, I would rather play probably Schroeder and Redick, for example. But there's nothing wrong with playing Klay Thompson in absolutely anything you want to tonight. The matchup is good, micro and macro. I guess not macro. They play pretty slow now, but the defense isn't very good. But, Kevin Durant really gets me hot and bothered. I do declare. But Klay Thompson, not quite so much. Of the big guys, the last one I probably want to play a tournament is Jordan Bell, believe it or not. He's fine in cash. He's fine in a tournament. I would rather play other guys in cash and in tournaments, just an ownership issue. Before the last game, I said something that turned out to be correct, was that, Damian Jones sort of already won the battle of the bigs there, and I thought it was very possible that he was going to pick up some extra minutes, as opposed to everyone's like, well, we're just all Draymond's minutes going to go. I'm like, well, some of them will go to Damian Jones, who had gone down to seeing minutes in the teens. The last game, he went back up to seeing 23 minutes. Because, again, Steve Kerr has kind of come out and said, yeah, that's my favorite of Bell, Looney, Jones, Jerebko, who are really 4 bigs who have similar role sizes, abilities. There's obviously some differences between them, but, he sort of ranked them when he went Jones, Bell, and Jerebko and Looney are screwing around, and then McKinney, sometimes they run small and all that shit happens. So, you want to play McKinney in a tournament? Fine, don't play him in cash. Don't play any of these guys in cash. Outside of, you could argue that you play Damian Jones in cash on DK at 3,200. I think he's better in cash than Amir Johnson. Certainly a lot safer. So, I think Damian Jones goes under-owned. I even like him in tournaments as a punt, because I don't think people go there. Warren or Redick for cash? I'll take Warren there. Very close. So, yeah, Quinn Cook, again, I'm fairly solid on. I like him. I think he plays 30 minutes. So, I'll take Quinn Cook. I'm fine with that. I will slightly prefer Isaiah Cannon if it comes down to that. Iguodala playable in tournaments. I'll do some ball handling himself. Bad correlation with Cook, by the way. But, yeah, tournaments I probably prefer today. Jones, Looney, Bell, McKinney, Jerebko in that order. But none of them amazing. And again, if you looked at the last game, everybody played 20 minutes. Jones got the most at like 23. Everyone played 19, 20, or 21 minutes, I think, of Bell and Looney and McKinney, and I think Jerebko maybe got less. But they really evenly passed out the, hold on, I think I have it on this tab. I do. Jerebko 16, Iguodala 16, Cook 19, but again, Steph played 26. So that should really make you a little more comfortable with his minutes there. McKinney, 20. Looney, 21. Bell, 22 in the start. Jones, 23. Almost there, 2 questions. I have a game left, right? I believe I have solamente uno juego remaining. I have 2. God damn it. Thunder and Mavs. Yeah, going to be an under-owned game here. I like Schroeder again because he was bad last game. Again, you're just playing ownership here. Last game, I was a really big fan of George and not Schroeder, and that worked out extremely well. More for what I thought they would be owned. I'm tempted to invert that a little bit here, but you can have any amount of, certainly Paul George on DK and anything. Certainly don't mind Schroeder, especially when his ownership is reduced a little bit. Adams is fine in tournaments. I don't hate him in cash, but I would prefer Wendell Carter on DK. I don't want to pay $7,800 for him on FanDuel. I am never going to play Abrinas or Hamidou Diallo or Turd Ferguson, especially when there are other guys who are good. But again, 2 games out of 3 or 3 games out of 4, none of them are good. Last game, Turd Ferguson was good. Before that, nobody. Before that, Abrinas was good. Nobody. Like, there's just other guys who are much more solid tonight for those even prices in the 3Ks. Just going to speed through here. Dennis Smith Jr. is a strong tournament play. The pace is great. The micro matchup is great. The macro matchup is great. Dennis Smith certainly in tournaments. Wesley Matthews cash if I was going to do it. Harrison Barnes 5,300 is just a little bit cheap. You can do that just about anywhere you want to. I don't mind him in tournaments. I really don't mind him in cash. Doncic, it seems like, is likely going to play. Spurs will start White, Forbes, DeRozan, Cunningham, and Aldridge. That's what I expect. Mo Harkless is out. Well, that changes everything. I'm just kidding. That doesn't change anything. And it's tomorrow. But other than that, it changes everything. You can play Doncic in tournaments. Strong tournament play whenever you can get 1% owned Doncic. You can play DeAndre Jordan in tournaments. Has had some very decent games against Steven Adams. It's not a bad play, but it's likely going to middle you. Generally would rather, play Randall or Brow or pay down or do something else. Final game, Kings and Lakers, over under 385, something like that. Lonzo is, I believe, questionable, but wants to stop being told that he's constantly ducking De'Aaron Fox, so he's trying to get out there and play. If Lonzo does not play, Rondo at $5,100 is an ideal late swap target. JaVale McGee, you can play in just about everything. People overreacting to, a bad game and getting a bucket. I wouldn't go there. Kuzma's only tournaments for me. Ingram's only tournaments for me. I would prefer Ingram to Kuzma if I was looking for a secondary 6,000-esque target for this game. LeBron is great. DraftKings pricing, I like him less than Brow and George and Durant, but he's still great. I do think that this situation, this team, does limit his ceiling a little bit. I think most of his games will be in the low to mid 50s. You'll occasionally see 40s. You'll occasionally see 60s. This is obviously wicked matchup, and if it doesn't blow out, and the Kangs have definitely been salty and a little more tenacious than we may have expected them to be. But, if this game stays close and you got 75 out of LeBron, I would not be shocked. But the minutes are down versus last year, and he comes in fourth on that list of guys for me. I will leave it there. Bogdanovich is back. He played, I think, 18 minutes last time. Bogdan, that is. Took the minutes that game from Nemanja Bjelica, who started really slowly, and they ended up playing small a lot, where you ended up with a lot of Fox, Hield, Shumpert, Bogdanovich, Willie Cauley-Stein. I don't think that's what happens more often than not. I think he takes those minutes from Shumpert, but I'm just guessing and telling you what I would do. Shumpert's still $3,800. I liked him a lot yesterday. He got there. I like him less today. We're on a back-to-back and Bogdanovich is in, as opposed to being on the front end and Bogdanovich out. But I'd have some exposure to Shumpert. More on FanDuel where you can drop it, and he gets 3 points for the steals, which is something he can really do. He's actually a really strong defender. But he healed on DK. You can certainly run him out there in anything. The price is really good. FanDuel, you can run him out there in everything too. Again, this all comes down to ownership, and I expected Clay to be fairly chalky. So I liked Hield as a sort of a pivot off of Clay, and Schroeder, who I expected to be the two most popular guys. So Hield anywhere, Fox anywhere. He's come down to $7,400 from that ridiculous $8,000 FanDuel price. Feel free to play Hield anywhere you want to. Bjelica not out of play in tournaments, but we're starting to price out the upside a little bit. But if I had 150, I'd have two lineups with Bjelica in there. Bogdan himself, FanDuel only $3,800, and again, I'd be surprised if he got more than like 24 minutes. Dylan Brooks, no, thank you. Marvin Bagley, strong tournament play, but you're betting on the blowout there. You need them to get whooped. So if you randomly are like, shit, I have no exposure to this game and I have $4,600 left, Bagley is fun. Can you play CP3 and Harden together in cash? Yes. They're just fine in cash. Like if you project them tonight, you get 41 for CP3 and 51 for James Harden or something, and you're just fine with those numbers at those prices. Yeah, they're both strong cash plays. I would not worry about it together. All right, resetting a couple updates here, and then we are going to kick this shindig off. Going to get in there and get some questions again. We will start with the L Premium and then move on. Costa Koufis in play as well, by the way, unless they announce that he randomly sits tonight, which I don't expect them to. He's been really productive with his minutes on the court. Always. It's not really just this year. Like, Costa Koufis has always been a pretty productive NBA guy. So starting with the premium chat, let's fire up some questions and we'll talk about them. Did we get news? Someone asked about TJ at point guard. Wizards will start these same guys. Yeah, I'm going to... you all need to be Johnny on the spot with firing news at me if it comes in. Don't be fake, or I swear to God I will murder you. But, if we get a Philly lineup, that's going to be pretty important, and they'll yell out pivots. TJ McConnell's fine to play in tournaments right now. I wouldn't play him on FanDuel. If you want to play him on DraftKings with the ability to change if he doesn't start, because I don't think he does start, but Yeah. So get all your Nance in there. We'll start with that. I want to make that clear. And then, have a spot for TJ McConnell. But if he doesn't start, I move him. I think there's a shot he starts. And Simmons basically starts off the ball. That is like my second favorite lineup if I was Brown. Best punt center on FanDuel, Chandler or Jones? I would play Jones over Chandler. I have no issue if you want to play Chandler. That's very close to me. Zizic or Amir, FanDuel GPP already playing Nance. Nance largely irrelevant for that consideration. GPP, I would play Zizic. You're going to get a percentage as opposed to 11 or something. Yes. Dylan Brooks, I don't know what that's about. Spurs will start. Boom. Adams or McGee. Best center play tonight, FanDuel GPP. There's a lot. I'll talk about centers on FanDuel for a second here. Let me find my FanDuel tab wherever it is. Larry Nance is a power forward there if you're looking for him. Starting at the bottom, Tyson Chandler at the minimum is interesting. Damian Jones at 100 over the minimum. I like both those guys at punts on FanDuel because some of the higher price centers are all vaguely appropriately placed. You can play $4,200 Jordan Bell. You can play $5,500 Tristan Thompson. You can play $6,900 Dwight Howard. Nice, but not really that nice. You could play JaVale McGee in a tournament. I would probably rather play Willie Cauley-Stein at that point, by the way. I don't mind Willie Cauley-Stein at DK. I did not specifically mention him, but I like him less than that triumvirate of Randall, Carter, Adams at 62, 3, 4. DeAndre Jordan, 7,900. Sure, in 150 I'd have some, but, he'd be down the list. Capella at 8,000, whatever. Capella, tremendous on DraftKings, by the way. He's yet another guy in that price range I really like. Like, those four guys are all very close for me. In tournaments, I get off Wendell Carter because there's other guys with a strong upside right there on Randall and Adams and Capella. FanDuel, 8,000. That's a bit of a kick in the balls. You can play Whiteside. I think we've established that there's a massive upside there, and you can certainly play Embiid when he's likely to gobble up a lot. Archie Diacono, okay in cash. FanDuel, yes. DK, yes. 3,300, you can certainly do it. Wes and Dylan Brooks are sitting in your GPP lineup. God be with you, my son. Give you all the Jabari every slate. You can't stop now. We got there yesterday. I felt I gussied up and made what I thought was a bold take, and it worked out. Is there a show tonight? I hope that's a troll. Otherwise, you're playing on FanDuel. See, that's a FanDuel guy who's like, starts in an hour. I'm here for the show. See, of the many things you fucked up tonight, FanDuel, other than your product, that too. You're messing up my chi. I've got the Quan, but I have no chi, and certainly not Quan chi because that guy will kill you. Fultz or Redick in cash? You're asking for FanDuel, I presume, because they're about the same price there. In DK, there's a pretty significant disparity. I will go with Redick. Any interest in Derek White since he's starting? I think he's fine in tournaments. I have obviously concerns about the minutes. He started last game. That didn't do a whole hell of a lot for us, but it is something you can do if you want to. Is Josh Hart viable? He's fine in tournaments where he's like $4,300. If you want to play on DraftKings and leave a spot for TJ McConnell, and load him in your lineup at 3,100. Have a plan to move. Try to have him in utility because there's lots of really good 3,100 guys, so you're fine there. Best Memphis play. In tournaments, I'd be very close between Jaren Jackson Jr., Mike Conley, Garrett Temple, and Kyle Anderson. It would be spite dependent as well, but none of them particularly wonderful. Baines impression? Nobody cared who I was until I was traded to Boston. Is it wrong to like Fultz a little? No, it's not wrong at all to like Fultz. His minutes should come up. Minutes equals money. Jaren Jackson Jr., major upgrade with Philly? No. No one will stop him but Jaren Jackson Jr. Best value Cav on FanDuel. Tristan Thompson. That was easy. Stupid FanDuel. Stupid monkey. Holiday or Warren on DraftKings. Warren is more cashy. Holiday's just fine to play in tournaments. He's a pivot off a Chalky or Warren. I would predict Warren for more raw points, but I have no issue with the pivot. Best Lakers play on FanDuel cash. LeBron James. But after Bron in cash, punting Tyson Chandler at center. It's the next best cash play there. Is Conley a fade or D'Angelo Russell? They're probably both fades most of the time. If I had to play one in a tournament on DraftKings, I would rather D'Angelo Russell. On FanDuel with the relative pricing, I'd rather Mike Conley and Whitlock. Would you stop me from playing LeBron and KD on FanDuel? No, not at all. I love playing LeBron and KD at FanDuel. With their unique sort of double structure-y thingamidoo that they do there, I'm a big fan of stacking the piss out of a position because just most people are a little more disinclined to do it just because of the process most people go through in building a lineup. So whenever you can play, Westbrook and Steph for $23,000 a point guard, it is a little better than it is playing Westbrook and Steph at DK because the positionality restriction makes it less likely people will do it, whereas on DK you're just dividing by price. Locks at 8 on FanDuel. Yeah, y'all got 58 minutes on FanDuel. What do I think about TJ McConnell? I think he was like a desperation tournament play on FanDuel. On DraftKings, I think he was fine doing. Gordon is in. Okay, so slightly less excited about Paul and Harden in tournaments, just a little bit, but it pulls the minutes down on them each a little bit. He himself, if you ran him out on FanDuel at $5,000, is an exceptional play, and I like in your tournament pool on DK at $5,500 without Melo. He gets more of the bench scoring. Now, because of how they stagger Paul and Harden, he doesn't get all of it, which would make him just a phenomenal play. Like, he's a monster when he gets time and shots. He was injured earlier. I know this year we liked him a lot, and then it turns out, update, Eric Gordon may have his minutes limited on Saturday. You bastages. So just ignore all that shit I said. Best power forward on FanDuel. His name is Larry Nance. Favorite play of the night. Larry Nance. Wes Johnson, 3%. Higher than I would have thought, but don't mind him. Fultz and Cauley Stein or Clay and Tristan. The former in tournaments, the latter in cash. Do you think Eddie asks himself a play question in his head and answers out loud like he does for chat? Once in a while. I'm sitting there. I can't stop. I do so many shows that I'm sitting there and I'm annoying in restaurants. It's this nice quiet restaurant. Taking my wife out for our anniversary. Candles on the table. A nice wine. Some cheese bread. And I'm sitting there, boy, I want to have steak, but chicken's pretty good too. Now, the upsides of steak are the fact that it's much denser protein. And, I've been working out a lot recently, hoping to put on some extra muscle. But chicken goes through your system much faster. It's only 3-4 hours. Steak tends to be like 7-8 hours. And I can get a little banked up. We might have sex later. And that would be much more difficult if I got 4 pounds of red meat stuck in my bowels. But if it's just chicken, so yeah, it's bad. Thoughts on Dallas guys? Basically, they all make pretty interesting tournament plays. They're all roughly appropriately priced. Some of them are a little cashier. They're all going to be under-owned on a giant slate. So, Harrison Barnes is pretty cashy. DeAndre Jordan is kind of cashy. Comes with a pretty safe floor most days. Luka. Wes is kind of cashy, too, because he's cheaper. The minutes have been significant. Luka with his potential injury and minutes limitation, and Smith with his I might lose my minutes to this little Juan Jose fellow right here. They come with some more risk. But cheese bread is good, so good. We occasionally eat at some really expensive steakhouse, which name eludes me at the moment. But last time I got there, they were like, "Here's your bread. It is rye made with something very impressive, but I enjoy a good rye bread. And there's also this pumpernickel with sea salt and sort of thing. And then here are your spreads. There is this cheddar cheese infused with whiskey. And I'm just like, dear God. I literally ate 4,000 calories worth of bread before my 30-ounce steak arrived. But, bread. Carter Williams available. Okay, so everybody's in. So everybody's a little bit worse there. Still, no issue with playing those guys in tournaments, but took a little shine off the rose for all those guys you wanted. Barnes or Doncic, I just discussed. What would be your best value for a forward under $3,500 on DraftKings? Well, the contests have started now. So let's hit reload here. Magruder, Fultz, or J.R. Smith on FanDuel if I had to pick one. Fultz. Monster Dallas line. You mean the over-under is supposed to be a fast game? Winslow okay for cash on FanDuel? Not till you tell me that Goran Dragic is out. Even then, I'm a little dicey, but certainly tolerable. Can we build a FanDuel cash lineup? You're late to the party. I will talk about some guys I like on FanDuel and cash. Building lineups is generally a no-no. So I will look at FanDuel specifically, look at each position, and talk about guys I think are strong cash options. At point guard, I don't mind the punts. None of the point guards on FanDuel are priced so exceptionally that I really want to get there. The more expensive point guards who I wouldn't mind playing in cash, I think you can play John Wall. Like, he played 42 minutes yesterday. If there's some uncertainty, it's that maybe the game blows out, which is every game. Or maybe he played 42 minutes yesterday and they try to pull back the throttle a little bit. But he's probably going to play 40 minutes again, and that's pretty exciting even at 10,000. So if you had a cash lineup with John Wall in it, he's coming with a floor, I wouldn't hate it. I would probably rather save $300 and play Simmons. But obviously the matchup is worse. So that's also back-to-back. It's all messy. I like Chris Paul a little more than both those guys, and I like De'Aaron Fox more than all those guys. So probably $8,200 Chris Paul and $7,400 De'Aaron Fox would be my pay-up guys for a cash lineup. After that, is Goran Dragic starting, or is FanDuel bad with their check marks? Or did I miss news? He's got the I'm starting check mark on FanDuel. Are you being naughty, FanDuel? I'm looking at news. He's still questionable. FanDuel. I worked for a DFS site for a number of years, and one of the things we discussed was, do we want to do this checkmark thing? And it was like, well, you're going to get it wrong once in a while, and people are going to get pissed. And you don't get it wrong. You import that information from a stat provider, so Stats Incorporated, or whoever it is, what the fuck? So anyhow, Goran Dragic with the green checkmark on FanDuel, unlike several other players who are actually confirmed to start, they're not doing good with the checkmarks over there today. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm just gonna say this. I'm just taking a cream puff. TJ Warren is starting. If you had some concern towards that, starting Ryan Anderson. So yeah, and then FanDuel at the punts. Quinn Cook, probably my favorite of the punts to start. You could do Tyler Johnson if you had the news by 8 o'clock on Dragic. And Ryan Arcidiacono, 3,500 I would like over Derek White at Ryan at that price. Let's go look at shooting guard. Don't really want to play Harden, DeRozan, Levine, Beals. They're all towards the top of their price ranges. Now, they're all pretty safe in their own ways. Beal, basically a sort of simulacrum of the argument we just had with John Wall. Harden, obviously expensive, but he's not going to fail to get you 40 almost certainly. I don't want to play any of those guys in cash. 8,800 for Levine. I'd probably rather play Levine than the other three. Levert, 78, not cashy. Questionable. Doncic, showing no designation, by the way. So just to clear you up here, Dragic is starting, which he isn't, and Doncic is 100% healthy, which he isn't. Healed, Schroeder. Schroeder is definitely cash worthy. So yeah, the guys, I can limit this to a pretty quick pool. Schroeder, Clay, Redick. I don't think I hate Justin Holiday in that spot. Minutes is magic. I don't know what to tell you. Anyone else I can play in cash? Not Dylan Brooks. Screw you, Dylan Brooks. I'd certainly play Garrett Temple before I played Dylan Brooks. His matchup looks a lot rosier with the guys I expect Philly to roll out there. Shumpty Dance, I would actually play in cash before a couple of those guys. Or as he was on the Sacramento postgame show last night, Inmon Shumpert with a C. That really happened. Yeah, so Furkan I didn't specifically allude to. That's because I wouldn't play any. Yeah, he's basically out of the rotation. He got like 3 minutes of blowout run a few days ago and then hadn't played for like 5 games before that. Do I think he plays? Yeah. Do I think he plays 20x minutes and does well enough over multiple guys they like more who can play similar positions and are better? No. So like I'm willing to die on Furkan Korkmaz Hill. If he randomly gets 24 minutes and produces 28 fantasy points with him and is useful, I offer my most sincere apologies, but I'm going to take the under on both those numbers. No ABA still only tournaments for me. Let's go on and look at small forward on FanDuel. You can play LeBron in cash. You can play Durant in cash. You can play Paul George in cash. I would much rather have Dragic news, although he's also Josh Richardson is also marked as starting here, which I don't think we know. I'll check my good friend Ira Winderman in a minute here. But any of those guys, Josh, you could honestly play in. Can you go over Bolden again? Yeah, Bolden is a fine tournament play. I think if everything were, we're making a lot of guesswork for how they align themselves defensively, and that's really going to depend how the minutes come out here. Bolden was the first big off the bench last game, came in for Saric only 5 or 6 minutes into the game. Only played 10 minutes, but got 4 fouls in them. So I currently have 20 minutes of Bolden written down, and he's fine. You want to play minimum price Bolden in a tournament, go ahead. Someone we talked about a lot during the Summer League shows and who does carry some sort of upside. But my real thing with playing the sketchy Philadelphia players is the matchup is also terrible. Like, if they were playing Phoenix, this is a much more interesting situation for me. But even if you give him this guy and go, oh, minimum price, and I'm guaranteeing you he gets 25 minutes. You really want 25 minutes of these guys, even at minimum price against Memphis? So that's where I just think I'm generally coming lower than most people. How do you project Archie Diacono that he's starting? Decrease usage? Well, no, because of what usage means. I don't think so. I think his usage should stay about the same. His role will be pretty similar. I like him a little bit more. I think his usage and his production stay roughly consistent relative to minutes. Maybe a little bit lower on the production, but the usage should stay about the same. It's just a minutes question. They obviously have several guys. They can have point guard there. There's possibility of a blowout. Shit can go wrong many ways. So, yeah, feel free to play Ryan Arcidiacono. Feel free to not play Ryan Arcidiacono. Both plays have a fair amount of merit, but 3,500, 3,300, Cavs, like, that can certainly work out for you there. Where was I? Oh, yes, FanDuel, cash guys. There may not be anyone cheap I want to play in cash. May just be a spend-up position for me. Yep, spend-up position for me. Power forward. Nance is my number one. I don't mind if you play Aldridge at 8,100. That is still a little cheap for him, and he's a pretty cashy guy coming with a pretty safe floor, and I like the micro matchup. Bud Carter Jr., a little worse than Aldridge, but I don't hate him in cash. Don't play Saric, who has no designation here. Come on, FanDuel, step your game up. There's a chance Markieff would be in like my top 4 favorite cash power forwards. I would probably rather play PJ Tucker in cash, which can't be a good sign. Your tournaments. I will check all these comments you're giving me. I don't think I hate Ante Zizic. He's power forward, minimum price there. I'm pretty sure he's my favorite minimum price power forward, though. Let me check. Maybe I'm going to run into a mirror in a second or something. Yeah, don't hate Zizic there. I'll check centers in a second. Wait, I already did center on FanDuel. I'm done. Jared Allen or Tristan Thompson, FanDuel. Tristan in cash, Jared Allen in tournaments makes sense for me, though. Yeah. I mean, Tristan has a real upside. I don't have a real issue with either one, but Allen only tournaments. We like Archie, CP3, or Fultz Capella. Fultz Capella sounds like an awesome singing group. I'll go former in cash, latter in tournaments, but projects pretty identically. Archie Diacono or Damian Jones, DK GPP utility. I think I'd go with Damian Jones. No, I'm not playing Chimezie Metu. That's a good one, though. Don't get me wrong. It's getting there, but you're not there yet. You've got lines with Arc and Fultz. Now you're having fun. All right, I'm going to look at some messages over here in the YouTube. Why do I like Nance so much? Because they moved him into the starting lineup, and his only limitation ever was minutes. He is a 1.1, 1.2 fantasy point per minute player, and they only were running him as backup next to, behind Tristan Thompson for the longest time, and Tristan Thompson would play 31 minutes, and he'd play 17 minutes behind him, and that was all he got. And he'd give you an average of 20, 22 fantasy points. And then everybody got hurt, and still last game they started J.R. Smith fucking over him. But then Cedi Osman went out, and he spent all his time at the 4, and now he's starting at the 4. So, yeah, I imagine someone in the office said, we're going to extend this kid, and he's going to be a big part of the team, and why don't you let, he's also just a better player. What the fuck are you doing? And now Cedi is out, so if you get 30 minutes of Larry Nance at $4,600, he should demolish. He should give you, and also the matchup is supremely good. So, big fan of it. Fultz or Clarkson in cash? Neither, please. No. I'd go Clarkson, which feels dirty. You said to punt center on FanDuel? I don't mind punting center on FanDuel, which is rare. But, yesterday we were pretty sure we were going to have multiple 60-point scoring centers, and we didn't disappoint. We had 3 50s, 2 60s, a 70, and an 80. Like, yesterday was a pretty good center scoring day. Today, you got Embiid. If Embiid puts up 75 again, then you're going to have been wrong for punting center. I just don't think that's how that game plays out. Daddy like, for fuck's sake? Okay, we will look at some DraftKings ownership real quick, and then I will get out of here. Randall with 7.5 fantasy points already, by the way. Randall. All the Randall they can handle. Who said Nance starting, though? Someone on my list of verifiable sources, or I would not have repeated it. Fantasy Labs NBA. Who gets like 2 wrong a year. They have fucked up. So all I have is that source. I don't know what source they pulled from, but Justin messes up very, very rarely. So I have a list of, there's about 162 accounts in here, but they're accounts I trust, and that's towards the top. So I presume Nance is starting, and he should have been starting all along, and I'm not surprised he is starting now. So all that works out and makes sense. So we'll do some ownership daddy real quick. Let me actually, someone got logged out there. Let's look at DraftKings, the 350K excellent eights. You know what really aggravates me about this? And not that there aren't a million things to be aggravated about, but it says excellent eights with 8 apostrophe S. So the 8 is possessive? Like the tournament belongs to the 8? I'm just saying. Not that it's the language of Shakespeare, you goddamn heathens. Alright, let me find some ownership on this grammatically offensive but terribly exciting tournament. Alright, here we are. Loading and loading. Number 1 owned guy at 41%. Julius Randle. That's a little more Randle than you can handle. Daddy still likes. And again, I'm cheating a little bit because he's got 7.5 fantasy points in 3 minutes so far. But I was a pretty big fan of him in tournaments. Anthony Davis, 17%. So I have a healthy Anthony Davis against the Suns at 17%. All right. He only has 5 fantasy points in 3 minutes, so busto there. But daddy like. TJ Warren only slightly less owned than Anthony Davis in the same game, 16.5%. Drew Holiday, 16%. Daddy really liked that number. Devin Booker, 14%. Daddy still liked, but there were a million great options at that point. Probably slightly preferred Drew, but that's really close. Isaiah Cannon, 6%. Daddy like. Wesley Johnson, 5.25%. I mean, Suns. Yeah, daddy like. I'm still fine with my West at that number. DeAndre, 4%. Yeah, or it's DeAndre Ayton, by the way. I got to scroll that out. I can only see first names. DeAndre Ayton, 5%. Yeah, I'm fine with that at that number. Again, I'm a little worried about that matchup. More of a cash than tournament play for me. It doesn't seem like a spot he should hit a ton of upside. Trevor Ariza, 4.3%. Daddy like. And I got that almost right on the nose, by the way. I said TJ Warren would have triple the ownership. It's about 3.5 times, but that was the theory there. So either way, I do think Trevor Ariza was a better play in tournaments tonight. Whether or not it happens to hit, each one more under 3%. Daddy really like. That's very, very strong. McCall Bridges, 0.71%. Darius Miller, 0.42%. We end our game because Elfrid Payton, 0.24%. Congratulations. You played yourself. Thank you for joining me for this evening's show and that scintillating episode of Daddy Like. I will not be back tomorrow. I'm going to do something else, as this is, 13 consecutive days of doing at least one show, and my family misses me, and they like Daddy as much as Daddy likes. So, with those final notes, if you have any follow-up questions, if I missed anything, you have anything leading up to the 8 o'clock thing, if there is further news that you would like my reaction to, feel free to send me a message on the Twitter machine at FastEddieFear. It is my pleasure, my honor, as always. Bonne chance.